My name's Colin Goddard. A year ago today, as I watched the unfolding coverage of the tragedy at Virginia Tech, at about this time, I found out that my own son Colin, had been shot multiple times. A year ago tonight, I sat by his hospital bed and struggled with my emotions as I watched him lying bleeding amidst a tangle of wires and tubes and pipes, all connected to the machines that were sustaining him. I decided that in exchange for him being spared, I would dedicate myself to the cause of preventing gun violence. Today I choose to stand here in front of the Supreme Court rather than by my son's side in Blacksburg, because right now the justices are deciding on what could be the most important case regarding guns in my lifetime. While they have been asked to rule on the constitutionality of the DC gun ban, they'll also be examining the meaning of and intent behind the Second Amendment. This involves far more than passing of an antiquated sentence. I'm not a constitutional scholar or much of a historian, but it's obvious to me that our founding fathers took great care in crafting our Constitution and used the language of the day with great skill. They didn't use words or phrases which they expected to be ignored or were of passing importance. Those brave and intelligent men put into words the aspirations and hopes of the fledgling nation, and they addressed the most pressing of problems and threats that faced them at that time. I find it difficult to believe that they would have wanted to craft any language which would prevent future generations of their descendants from addressing the new and more complex problems that face our evolving society. In those early days of flintlock muskets, our ancestors could not have imagined a future where a deranged individual could murder so many people with such ease. They probably could not imagine that weapons would become so powerful, so easy to conceal, and so simple to use. Regardless of whether the court rules that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual right to own a gun for self-defense or a collective right for communal defense, I hope and pray that the justices uphold the concept that no right is absolute, that no right comes without an equal amount of responsibility, and that the expression well regulated is not ignored. Normally we expect strong leadership on difficult issues, but looking at the current crop of presidential candidates, their silence on this subject is deafening. It seems that their perception is that in political suicide, just as in actual suicide, nothing is as effective as guns. Okay, America, it looks like we the people will have to work out this problem ourselves from the ground up. In a few moments, many of us will lie down to commemorate the 32 students and faculty that were murdered on that awful day 1 year ago in Blacksburg. But I want to remind you today is another anniversary. In fact, it is many. Today is the 1 week anniversary for the 32 Americans that were shot dead on April 9th. The 1 month anniversary for the 32 that were shot dead on March 16th this year. I know this because an average of 32 Americans, actually more now, are murdered with guns each and every day of the year, and almost 200 others are wounded, with injuries ranging from minor all the way through to permanent disabilities that last their entire lives. Sadly, today is also the day before 32 more Americans will lose their lives to our national obsession with guns. Tonight, 32 people will go to bed for the last time, and tomorrow 32 families will be ripped apart by bullets. During the lie-in and afterwards, I'd like us all to think not only of the 32 Virginia Tech victims and the injured, but also of the other victims whose passing may not be as well memorialized. People whose murder is noted only on the inside pages of their local newspaper with a short paragraph, but who are equally mourned and missed by their relatives and friends. It's too late now to stop the 32 people from dying today, and even the 32 that will die tomorrow, but we must seek ways that we can agree on to do something about reducing this number in the near future. Laws alone may not completely solve the problem, but neither will the unchecked proliferation of guns. There are many common sense measures that need to be taken to reduce the ready supply of guns to criminals, terrorists, domestic abusers, and the dangerously mentally ill. We need to ask ourselves, what real benefit does an honest, law-abiding gun owner gain from protecting the right of unlicensed sellers at gun shows to sell dangerous weapons to complete strangers without a background check? What responsible, law-abiding citizen needs to own an assault rifle or a .50 caliber sniper rifle for their personal defense? It's time to declassify guns as objects of worship and treat them as dangerous tools that should only be owned by responsible people who can operate them in a safe and responsible manner. I'm almost finished. Life liberty, and the pursuit of happiness remain the aspirations of all Americans, but none of these is available to those that lose their lives or their health to gun violence. Our founding fathers did not expect us to live our lives looking into the barrel of a gun, just waiting for someone to pull the trigger.